Now welcome to another Let's Talk Some Star Wars, where this time we'll be taking a look at and discussing the results of the poll that basically asked you if you're watching Skeleton Crew or not, and if you're not watching it, are you open to watching it? And of course I'll also be reading and responding to some of the comments left on the poll, and there were some really interesting ones this time, so we'll get to them in just a moment, but first we have to look at the results, where 38% said they are watching it or will absolutely watch it at some point. Some people do wait until the entire series is done and then kind of binge the whole thing, which I can completely understand. There was then 3% who said, I started watching or tried it, but stopped at some point. Then there was 27% saying, I'm not watching, but I am open to potentially giving it a try. And then 33% who said, I'm not watching and have zero interest in ever watching it. And right away, probably the most interesting takeaway from this, if we compare to the other polls I have been doing, asking what you thought of the individual episodes, and of course there's been about 63 to 65% of people going with the not watching it option, and many people have been asking, well, is that people that have no interest in ever watching it, or do we have people who maybe might give it a try? And considering when you take those bottom two options and you add them up and it gets 60%, that seems to correlate to the 60-some% in the other polls, and it turns out maybe a little less than half of them do have interest in potentially watching if the show continues to get positive reviews, which I have been giving it pretty much nothing but positive reviews. Not that my word is the end-all be-all to if you should watch it or not, though I do appreciate those who watch my reviews and maybe have decided to watch it because I have recommended it. But anyway, I'm going to move right to the comments because we do have quite a few. Like I said, we have quite a few interesting ones, and I'd like to do as many as I can here. But of course, I have to really quick just say thank you to everyone who does vote and watch or comment on these videos or these polls. I appreciate it very much, as I appreciate those who support the channel over on Patreon or the other channel as well. I do have two channels for those who don't know. But anyway, let us get right to those comments, and we once again will begin with the top-rated comment, which this time came to us from Derek the Dullard, who said, It's mad how so many of you aren't watching Skeleton Crew, but you're regularly interacting with this channel where Thor and Naboo are repeatedly praising the show week after week. It's honestly a great little show and a big step in the right direction for Star Wars. Please give it a chance, guys. Okay, so this comment, as you can probably see, I left it on the screen. It had 148 replies to just this comment, and it set off a little bit of a firestorm of people who agreed with what he was saying, and people who very much disagreed, and people, of course, just commenting about whatever they think. And I'm not going to respond too much to what was said in the response, because, well, a lot of what was said is kind of talked about elsewhere, and I'll just respond to those comments instead of kind of wading into the battle of this comment. But I will say that I saw some people saying here, or in the other comments, or maybe on some of my reviews, but there are a lot of people kind of upset at me, or mad that I am sort of recommending this show. And when I say I'm recommending it, I'm simply saying that I think it's a good show. I'm not telling you to subscribe to Disney Plus or resubscribe. I'm not telling you to give them your money. I'm not telling you to forgive Disney and or Lucasfilm for any and all of the mistakes they have made over the past decade, or to forgive their transgressions towards the fans and some of the things that they have done, or maybe said, or not said. Again, I'm simply saying that this is a pretty good show. I am watching it week in and week out, and I think it is a solid show. And of course, that leads to a lot of people now calling me a shill once again, that I am on the Disney payroll, that I am trying to promote a show that I don't actually enjoy, or something like that, or it's mediocre and I'm calling it great regardless. And I think those people tend to forget that about 6 months ago, I was very much accused of being a complete hater channel who did nothing but crap on Star Wars for money, because I was not a fan of The Acolyte. I had the exact opposite. And so what I want to say here, as politely as I can, is consider the possibility that I am just telling you what I think about the shows I watch. And you can do with that whatever you want. I am not the be-all, say-all when it comes to Star Wars. I am simply a Star Wars fan who has the privilege of being able to make videos that are watched by people. And it is indeed a privilege that is afforded to me by the people who watch my videos. They are the ones who keep this channel afloat, as are the ones who, again, support me on Patreon, which I also greatly appreciate. But basically what I'm saying here is I'm going to tell you what I think because I think you are owed my honest opinion. I'm going to try to keep my integrity instead of trying to hold to any sort of narrative or agenda. I know a lot of people hate Disney. I don't like Disney, but as I always say, I know I'm a broken record. I root for Star Wars. So if a Star Wars show is good, independent of what I may think of Disney, I'm going to tell you it's good. If I don't think it's good, I'm going to tell you that too, independent of what I think about Disney. I'm not trying to hold the line, if you will, and just tell you everything from Disney sucks. Some of it is good, some of it is bad, and I'm going to tell you what I think either way. And again, it's up to you to do what you will with my opinion. You can discard it if you want. You can put some value in it if you want. Either way, I'm here to talk some Star Wars. Alright, that said, let's move on to another comment, and I think this was the second highest rated one, and it came to us from Aaron Clift, who said, Disney is like an abusive spouse. Yes, they have their good days, but it's pretty hard overall to trust them after all the damage they've done to the Star Wars franchise. And though that is maybe not the analogy I would choose to use, but I 100% get where you're coming from, and I agree with you. I am not happy with a lot of what Disney has done either. I wish they didn't own Lucasfilm. I wish Lucas had never sold or had found something else to do with it. Anyway, I get it. Disney and Lucasfilm are responsible for the poor state of the franchise. They are reaping what they sowed. They are the ones who put out subpar shows and movies, or bad ones, depending on your point of view, and now have to face the fact that when they do put out something that many people who are watching it, the few that are watching it, think is really good, and want other people to watch because they're like, hey, this is good Star Wars. Give this a try if you like Star Wars. But again, they are reaping what they sowed because people just don't trust that. It's not that they're not trusting their fellow fans who are giving good reviews. They're probably happy, and I think there are comments in here saying, I'm happy that people are enjoying this, but again, I don't trust them. I don't want to give them my money, and I get that. And it is really just a shame that we have gotten to this point where so many fans, and again, as I always say about my polls, like if you're getting them in your feed, you're clicking on my videos, you're clicking on other Star Wars videos, you are a Star Wars fan, or once were, or however you want to look at it. And 33% of them, according to this poll, have zero interest, will not give this show a chance no matter what. And that's sad. That's 1 out of 3 Star Wars fans who don't want to watch new Star Wars no matter what. And yeah, some of them might not want to watch this particular show because it just doesn't appeal to them. There are those who say, you know what, it's not that I hate Disney, it's that I just don't want to watch this show. It just doesn't look like it's for me. But I would have to imagine the vast majority of that 33% aren't watching this or will never give it a chance because they just don't ever want to give another chance to Disney Star Wars. Alright, and the next comment here comes to us from Camaro Fan 2008, and I love the name. I had a 95 Z28 when I was much, much younger. But anyway, they said, even if the show is amazing, Disney Plus isn't worth it for just one show. And I think this is yet another very good point, another fair point that, let's be real, there isn't a ton on Disney Plus when it comes to brand new shows. Yes, they have a extensive catalog of old Disney movies. Everything Star Wars ever made is essentially on there. Everything Marvel is essentially on there. They have a wonderful back catalog, you could argue, especially if you have children and you want to show them all the Disney classics. It is great for that, I'm sure. But if you don't have that, and if you don't care about watching Star Wars and Marvel, the old movies, because you maybe own them all or you just don't want to watch them, then there just isn't much for you. There aren't a lot of new shows that come out. On average, you get 1 live action and 1 animated show every year from Star Wars, and maybe a Marvel show or 2, and then something else here and there that might interest you. And does that warrant you subscribing to Disney Plus? Well, again, that's up to you and your financial situation, of course, but I totally get not wanting to pay for Disney Plus because they put 1 show out there. And yeah, you can wait until it's done and then binge it all and cancel after 1 month. I'm sure there are probably free trial things out there you can get too. But I get it and agree, Disney Plus has not been the best streaming service when it comes to brand new content. They rely heavily on that Disney back catalog and the fact that, yeah, new Marvel movies and sometimes other movies as well will come there, and if you're not going to the theaters, well, it's a good place to see them, I suppose. Alright, and now we move on to this one from Credo the Gamer, who said, I'm part of the 3% who stopped watching partway through. I quit because I just don't get the same excitement for new Star Wars like I did for The Mandalorian. The Obi-Wan show and Acolyte were the breaking point for me. And again, that's a very fair point, and I was actually kind of surprised to see that 3% had started watching and stopped, because when you kind of do the math here, it's 3% of those who started watching in the first place, and when you consider some 60% here haven't watched at all, Well, that means roughly 7 to 8% of people who did give one episode at the very least a try, or at least a few minutes of an episode a try, have stopped watching it. So that's a pretty significant number who started at one point and stopped. And I was a little, again, surprised, maybe saddened, because yeah, I am enjoying the show, and it was a little surprising again to see so many people did give it a try and have checked out. But again, I can understand just the excitement for Star Wars in general not being there after so many other shows have failed you, essentially. Alright, and now we move on to this one from Keen Mean, who said, I think the biggest reason why so many people are not watching Skeleton Crew, myself included, is that they either don't have or unsubscribed from Disney+. While Disney Plus has a decent selection of shows and movies when you factor in all other streaming platforms like Netflix, Prime, and HBO Max, having just Disney content can't really compete, although that Hulu deal is pretty decent. And yeah, this goes along with that previous comment, but to take it another step, it's also the fact that a lot of the time when these shows do come out on Disney Plus, the limited number we get, the Marvel and Star Wars shows and the few others, they're not the best shows on streaming in general, right? Again, I think Skeleton Crew has been really good. I think things like Andor have been phenomenal. But a lot of these shows, and again, I'm not talking about Skeleton Crew necessarily, but when you take the Star Wars or you take the Marvel out of them, would they really compete with other shows out there? Do they stand on their own? Do they warrant you subscribing to Disney Plus over something like Netflix or Prime or HBO that might have wider selections and just better shows? I think there are a lot of reasons why people don't want to choose Disney Plus over these other streaming services. It's not just that the Star Wars shows might not be up to their expectations or hopes. It's, again, there's not a lot of new stuff, and a lot of the new stuff doesn't compete with the other streaming services' new stuff. Alright, and let's do one final comment here, and it comes to us from the Frozen One, who said, I don't need the whole franchise to be healed by one show in order to enjoy its merits. This is the first Star Wars show since Andor that I have gone back and rewatched. It's entertaining, fun, and Jude Law is hitting it out of the park. 10 out of 10 recommended. And I agree with this sentiment. Now, on the whole, Disney and Lucasfilm deserve the blame or potentially credit for the state of the franchise on the whole. They are the ones making the big decisions. They get to decide what gets made, who makes it, who writes it, who directs it, and so on. Now, that said, and yes, I realize this is obvious that you understand this, but maybe it should be pointed out or be a reminder. But the same people who, say, made The Acolyte are not the same people who are making Skeleton Crew, or that made Andor, or are making Andor Season 2. These are completely different projects under the same umbrella that is Disney Star Wars. And again, Disney deserves blame or credit overall. But when a show is really good, like I think Skeleton Crew is, I don't necessarily want to see it get blamed for what The Acolyte did before it when it was a totally different project. And yeah, I get it. Overall, if the shows and movies are bad, you're not going to keep paying for it. You don't want to just fall for it again and again. But things like Skeleton Crew and Andor should be looked at as individual projects to some degree, as well as being a part of that Disney umbrella. And when you just separate it out from the Disney umbrella, again, I think it's a good show. I think it's one worth watching if you're willing to give Disney your money or to find another way to watch it. But if you don't want to, I completely get it. Well, that's going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below and tell me what you think about anything and everything, all the rambling I had to do here in this video. Do you agree with what I had to say? Do you disagree with what I had to say? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.